of Black history, I have on an Emmett Scott Rattler sweatshirt in honor of the only black school in the history of Rock Hill, South Carolina, Emmett Scott High School, home of the Rattlers. And so part of my work as the chairperson of the Emmett Scott Advisory Committee was helping with the effort of restoring McGirt Auditorium. It was work that started back with the alumni of Emmett Scott, the Scottites. So there were a number of people in the community, not only the Scottites and not only the Emmett Scott Advisory Committee, but also the Clinton Connection Action Plan Committee as well. So going back to creating a comprehensive or getting a comprehensive study done to show that McGirt Auditorium could be restored. We fast forward to today that with the efforts of Rock Hill City Council and Rock Hill PRT, McGirt Auditorium has been fully restored. So it's a state-of-the-art facility that seats a total of about 765 people. We have state-of-the-art lighting, state-of-the-art sound. You can also do video production in the auditorium as well. What we like to talk about with the success of that project is kind of the theme that we have with the Emmett Scott Advisory Committee. Restoring McGirt and keeping the legacy of Emmett Scott going is what we call preserving legacy, but in an effort to make sure that we develop programming for the youth over at Emmett Scott and develop programming for the residents in Emmett Scott as well, or the communities that surround Emmett Scott. We refer to that as building community. So we're proud of the work that's been done with the auditorium, but we still have work to do. There's still areas of the center that need work done. The original gymnasium is there. There's also original areas of the school that's still there, that's housed by the Rock Hill Boxing Club. So there's another study that's being done to see what can be done to make those improvements. So we welcome everybody to come out on the grand opening, revealing these renovations on February the 19th at 11 a.m. It's something very proud that the community will pretty much bring a big smile to their faces. And also, too, we would like any of the alumni to come out and be a part of that celebration as well.
The greatest commandment. A lot of people say this is probably my favorite scripture, but I wouldn't say that. I think it's probably the most, something that's very important, because when Jesus was asked what the greatest commandment was, he said that to love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your soul, and with all your strength. And then he goes on to say to love your neighbor as yourself. And I just find that to be incredibly important and something we should be focused on, especially in the times we're living in. Just the power and the importance of love. First of all, love God with everything you have. And part of that is loving your neighbor as yourself. And like I always try to remind people that some of the problems we see in our world, in our country, in our community today, and so much violence and anger towards other people, is because people don't love themselves. And if you don't love yourself, it's just hard to love anybody else. So there's three parts to that commandment: love God, love your neighbor, and to love anybody else, you first have to love yourself.
Good evening, good evening. Welcome to Higher Definition Radio. I want to thank everyone for watching, joining, listening. Shout out to Everett Abel on his road to recovery, praying for a speedy recovery from him, praying for our community, praying for each other right now. We're in some different times. Yeah, this is a time I think when we get older, we'll tell our grandkids about how we made it through these times. Shout out to all the people that use StreamYard. As StreamYard is going through some major changes. Let me rephrase that. Facebook is going through major changes. Facebook does not want you to tie anything onto their platform. They want it all to go through Facebook. So for people to have outside services that bolt on to Facebook, they're going to make it hard for you to tie different programming in. That's why you don't see the preview for this show and anybody else that uses outside programming. They want you to use Facebook, and it's a revenue thing. They don't want you to use other services at all. So if you do some research a lot, the counts on how many people watching, they don't post any videos beforehand before shows get live. We used to have a flyer that went out because we use an outside service. None of that happens anymore. We're looking for a different platform to go on to make sure we get the full effect and the quality we want out of our services. Sorry for that little announcement. I know everyone doesn't use outside platforms, but most people do.
And had the nerve to go up on the price.
And had nerve to go up on the price for the platform. So we do want to say thank you for our viewers and listeners. And then I played a video that I played this morning for Sunday Morning Inspiration about love, and Everett talking about the greatest commandment, and it's love when it was posed to Jesus. And I think we don't think enough about that. Like right now, you got to love some folks, man. You got to really love some folks, no matter how they voted, no matter what predicament they put the country in. You really, really, really got to love some folks. Minister Daniel, how are you, sir?
Oh, man, doing great. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. Tell everybody who's watching, because everybody might not know, what's the name of your business and how can they reach you?
The name of my business is Faith Installations. You can reach us on Facebook. We also have a website. It's faithinstallations.com. Please join us. We mount TVs, we do speakers, cameras, anything you can think of electronic related, we can get it taken care of for you. In my opinion only, we have the best price in town. I've had a lot of people tell me, oh, you may not know what you're doing because you're too cheap. Cool. Take it however you want it. But my job isn't to try to rob you. My job is to get the job done, because your money you pay me is to take care of me. God has put me in this position, so God's the one taking care of me, so I can afford to charge you those great prices.
And I'm a witness. I'm a customer, so I can say he does great work. Been back to my house twice, so.
No, and we want to shout out businesses, and we want to shout out people who are out in the community. And I want to talk about our economic blackout on Friday in a second. T, how are you, sir? And do you want to talk about any of your business? You can be funny acting. But welcome aboard, T. How are you, sir?
Doing pretty good, man. Doing pretty good. I just started another business.
Okay.
So.
Is it photography?
No.
Please tell us, sir. Please tell us.
Home health care.
Okay.
So is it more delivery type stuff, T?
Nah, high-end clients who need more like in the South Park and the Ballantyne area. They really just they don't really need a caregiving. They just need people to kind of come in and make sure everything's going okay. It's more like I feel like we're talking amongst family here, but very wealthy folks that they family ain't doing things for them they don't need.
Makes sense.
Ain't doing things for them that they need. So they just need somebody to come in and do this and this, that, and third, and they pay pretty well for you know.
Shout out to UT.
Congratulations, man.
Entrepreneur. I know this is one of your businesses. I know you have other businesses. Shout out to you, who has been a friend of Higher Definition and a friend of the community. And as we talk a little bit more, talking about not only the community, but where we are in these times, and we talk about supporting Black businesses or supporting business in your local community. I think a lot of people have now seen how important that is in these times. Mr. Davis, how are you, sir?
Highly favored, sir, as they would say in church. Blessed and highly favored. But good to see everybody on the show this evening, man. And T, like I said, I'm probably get with you, man, because I'm in this corporate, like me and I've been doing this for a long time, brother, but been wanting to, get that nerve to take I ain't gonna say step completely out and just leave it, but the multiple income streams and stuff like that, man. Really want to do that to be able to have that, really nice nest egg for my family, right? So. And I say all that to say I applaud you for doing that. Even you, Freddie, you know what I'm saying? You as well, Lamont. And I pray that I don't continue to just play it safe all the time. I'll say that much. But looking forward to a great show tonight, man. And good to see y'all fellas again.
And shout out to Lysandra Crosby. She was on a few weeks ago, who owns a radio station and has different platforms. Somebody asked me a question today about your radio station, and I told them I'll put them in contact. So shout out to you. People who are out here grinding, making things happen.
Oh yeah.
In our community. And we're talking about current events, and we do roll this show out every quarter. We try to talk about current events. Sometimes things can get so serious that we need to have current events, but all of our current events are probably so serious it's hard to stray away from them. I want to start by talking about the economic boycott on this past Friday. And I'm going to start with you, Marlon. I know we're supposed to be target is the economic boycott. Do you think these types of things not only matter, but have an effect? We're using 1960s tactics on 2025 problems.
I say you have to start somewhere, right? But for me, these bigger corporations, to me, it's like one day isn't going to make them feel what I think people are really truly trying to make them feel. I even saw on social media, you had people, and it caught wind, Lamont. I will say this, it went viral. I think the individual that even started it didn't think it would pick up like it would, right? But you had people going by Walmart's, Targets, and we were in there, right? We were still spending money. You had other people that stayed fast, saying I'm not going to spend. And then I saw a comparison online, and I don't even know if it was true data, Lamont. So I ain't gonna say this was confirmed because I didn't do the deeper research. But I saw where their profits for that day actually increased versus actually decreasing. And if anybody can fact check that, let me know. But I saw an article on that, and just because it's on the internet didn't mean it was true. So that's why I always preface it that way. But you think about Lamont, what was it, the bus boycott, where like you said, back in the day, which lasted 381 days or something like that. And I just think if we are that serious about that, it has to be something that's lasting, longevity wise, to where they truly feel, the pressure from that, and see that, we can stick together and, cause a ruckus with that. But, we spend so much money frivolously, right? And we don't really take those things serious, and it's jokes, and people are still just doing what they do. And I think a lot of what's going on too, Lamont, I think a lot of times we don't feel like we make a difference, right, as a people. So I think what would help us too is to kind of change the mentality to know that your dollar counts. But I just don't think a day is enough to make those corporations feel the impact, in my opinion.
And Mrs. Crosby brings up a good point. One of the problems is they're so reactive to what the current problem is. And before I go to T for the same answer about the economic boycotts, here's my problem, and I'll give you the polling numbers. The Democratic Party right now is at a 21% approval rating across the country. And the reason most people state is there is no plan. We saw a lot of things happen over the last 2 months, and I haven't heard a plan or witnessed a plan. Not to make this about a political party, but there is no plan. Like none of us can articulate a plan. And we talked about Project 2025 for 6 months leading up to this campaign. And you telling me no one had a plan to say, well, what if someone else wins the election? What would happen? And I think that's the troubling part that Mrs. Crosby brings out, that there is no plan. Like, it's too reactive. Economic boycott, and there's more dates that are scheduled. Do you think they have effect and they have a place in 2025?
I think Marlon hit on two really good points, and I agree with both. And then he talked more about how that one day probably doesn't affect them a lot. So I'll kind of, just to play devil's advocate, I'll stick on the other side of how positive it was or was not. For instance, I think start with his point of you have to start somewhere, and I think I remember after the young man, who was the young man that was shot here in Charlotte? Was it? No, Freddie Gray was in Baltimore. Keith Lamont Scott.
That
Is
sounds
Keith Lamont
right.
Scott? They got shot here in Charlotte, and we I wouldn't say we boycotted. What do you call it? We went downtown Charlotte. People marched downtown Charlotte, and I went, and I felt something very powerful within me in that moment, right? And it's not always tangible. It's not always like how much money you made or how much money you saved, or it's about creating leaders. It's about sparking something in you, and I felt very vibrant and part of a community that I've never done anything like that, but I did that time, and in that moment, I felt something, and I did think it sparked something in me to help lead me down in the future. I wasn't even an entrepreneur at the time. I'm not saying that led me to entrepreneurship, but what I'm saying is I felt something in me that day. And so sometimes I do think these things are more tangible or less tangible. I don't know what I'm trying to say. It's more abstract, maybe. Some of the wins or some of the positives. It's not like we can always point exactly to like how much did we hurt them, or how much maybe we created some leaders that day. You know what I'm saying? So it's always a nuanced topic in a lot of different ways to kind of approach it and look at it. One of the things when I really became a Barack Obama fan, one of the things he said that I never forget was how incremental progress is, and how over time, even in our age group and the people younger than us, we want it so much faster. He's like, Jackie Robinson had to let people call him N-word and all the time he had to put up with that just for one person to go through the door, and then over time that progress becomes more and more incremental. And I think you can't, you don't build Rome in a day. You start somewhere, and I think that's a good start. Maybe next time we do 2 days.
Let me say this, and I'm smiling for a reason. These changes that have happened over the last 2 months, I promise you, they didn't happen in 1 day. They didn't happen in 2 days. They didn't take a generation to see change. And I think the theory is you take one step forward, you get knocked back 2. Minister Daniel, economic boycotts, do you think they helped, hurt, or you're indifferent to them? We're in 2025. We're using strategies from 1960s.
I agree with everybody said. We got to start somewhere, but the problem is you talking about a day. If I'm a Target shopper and I'm gonna say, okay, I'm gonna participate for that 1 day on Friday, whatever I need, I can go there and get it on Saturday. Because y'all said today, I participated. I just go tomorrow and get it. So that 1 day isn't going to do anything. And 2, how many of us, percentage-wise, go to Target? So Target already know, okay, out of all our shoppers, 10% of them are African-American. So if they don't come, we still make it 90% of the dollars. So that 1 day isn't going to affect. But why won't we just come together? So all those black products took out of Target, why won't we start a store and sell those products? But the problem with that is that Willie Lynch syndrome. We're not going to support each other. We do get the product. Now, we got mad at Target for removing the products. But say me and Lamont open a store and sell all those black products, how many of our people going to come shop at our store? They first think, they too high over there. I ain't going over there. Why they cost so much over there? So they're going to find a reason to go back to Target or go somewhere else because they're not going to want to shop with us because we look like each other. So if we want to do something, we got to put our money together. We not trying to be racist, but we talk about Mexicans. Mexicans can be in a 3-bedroom house and be 50 of them. Because they putting all their money together and uplifting each other. why can't we uplift each other with our dollars instead of then we ain't got to worry about going to Target?
And then Lamont too, you got to think it's like you talked about. You're talking about back in the 60s, 70s, right? You know, even people that, you know, people riding around to see who's where, what store. I mean, look at the convenience now, right? You can shop from your phone, right? And nobody has to even know. So even if I wasn't in Target, I could have been online, you know, picking up everything I want, you know what I'm saying, to be picked up or be delivered, right? So it's just so convenient now. And again, I still think that a lot of times we as people of color don't feel like we'll make that difference, that big of a difference.
Let me ask this question, and let me say this to Ms. Crosby. I plan on buying ad space on your radio station platform because I believe we need to support Black-owned businesses, and also we need to share our own stories within our own communities. And I think that's important. So I'll reach out to you soon to see how we can make that happen because I think it's important. If I can spend my money in the other social media platforms, Higher Definition should also support our own social media platforms who trying to make it day in, day out. So you have my commitment. You have Higher Definition's commitment that it will happen soon. And I encourage other entrepreneurs, small businesses to reach out to, and maybe your ad space or whatever is not what someone else's is. That don't matter, but every bit helps. And I'm not just saying that because we're on air. I'm saying that because I recognize the struggle of entrepreneurs, business owners who are trying to make it, and we won't support our own, then we'll complain about people not buying in. So I will do my part into that crusade.
And Lamont too, now that, and I didn't mean to interrupt you, Lamont. Even what Freddie brought up, man, and I have to be very transparent with myself. We'd actually went to, it was an Uptown Market this past Saturday. My daughter typically goes every weekend, and she wanted us to take her. It was us and the grandbabies, right? So we walking through the market, you know, everybody got their table set up, you know, majority Caucasian tables, a few of us, and it was a Black family that had like a juicing station, right? So they were selling the bottles of juice and stuff like that. And I think it was like $10 for one bottle, and then you could get, and you know, of course, juicing, of course, that can get expensive, right? And then you could get, I think, 6 for $30 or something my wife was saying. And, you know, I bought the one bottle for $10, you know, just support the Black-owned business. But then it's like even myself, Lamont, being transparent, I was questioning why they charging so much for a bottle of juice, right? And then I had to check myself as we were driving home. And I didn't talk to my wife about this, but I was just like, if I would have purchased that from a Caucasian person that sold it to me for $10, I wouldn't have thought nothing about it, would have just paid it, right? So I don't know if the mentality is there, is that if they look like us, it should be a lower amount. And I'm just like, how do we get out of that mentality, Lamont? Because I think that's what we can't get over, because we don't think about it with other carriers, right? But if it's a Black-owned business, it's almost like that connection, like, you know, how dare you charge me that? I look like you, if that makes sense.
No, it makes sense. And I will say this. Nikita's absolutely correct that Cadillac was saved on the backs of African Americans. And for us, on this panel, we all know Black people who own Cadillacs and still brand loyal to this day because it's Cadillac, you know, and we don't know a reason, it's just a Cadillac, so we had to have it. And it became a status symbol of Black people and Black wealth, even to this day. Like if you have a Cadillac, you were doing something. I'll circle back and say most people don't even know how the economic blackout was started and who started it. Does anyone on this panel know?
I don't know who started it. No,
I have no idea who started it.
It was a gentleman named John Schwartz, who runs the People's Union USA. And if the last name probably gives you an idea of his ethnicity, you're probably right. Grew up in Chicago. And so the economic blackout wasn't started by Black folks at all. It who's a white Jewish man who is at this moment has a GoFundMe for $100,000 to raise money off the economic boycott. And I'm not saying he's wrong, but I'm saying if Marlon Davis posted on TikTok, let's do this, and I'm putting up a GoFundMe, do we think that would have caught on like wildfire and black folks would have been all in? Yeah, we need to get rid of, we need to boycott Target. We need to boycott Amazon. My theory is the answer would be no. Like, we, even as black people, fight for inclusion for so this illusion of inclusion in our lives that we will leave others behind who are trying to make it in this world, and which is sad. And this, let me say this clearly. One, this is not a platform of racism, not a platform of disliking another race or culture, but black people have had a unique plight in this country, and it seems like it gets worse and worse and worse, so you keep getting kicked back. So there's a lot of bad feelings there, and I think we have to be careful on how we self-look at things. Like, we're on all these different platforms. We try to sell, we try to do these things as entrepreneurs or just everyday citizens. But what are we willing to sacrifice? And Minister Daniel brought up a great point that, like, sacrificing. Like, okay, if I boycott Target today, I'm just going to buy double up tomorrow, the next day. Like, what are we willing to sacrifice? And I brought this analogy this morning. When you talk about some of our older leaders, Martin Luther King, he was willing to sacrifice his life for the cause to make black people better, or the plight of black people. And Marlon, I'll ask you this question. Have we gotten so comfortable that we're not willing to sacrifice anything for our next generation or betterment of our people or people who are struggling?
I would say, Lamont, I don't know of too many leaders that are willing to give their life per se. I would say it's more now about, and it's unfortunate, about popularity and followers, right? And what I said for the moment to get you riled up, but it's like the follow-up a lot of times just isn't there. And I think, like Freddie talked about too, black people get a business and things like that. And a lot of times it's more like crabs in the barrel, or you going to visit the business, not to even purchase anything. You just going to see, what you can talk about. Say, oh, this joke or this building look like this or that and the other. Versus you got to start somewhere, like we talked about, right? But I would say, Lamont, I think there are some serious leaders out here, and I can't judge everyone to say that they would lay their life down, but I think we got a different type generation leaders now that are serious about the cause and stuff like that. But I think if it came to their life or Marlon's life, I think they would choose theirs.
And shout out to Sean Hurt, who takes part in educating our youth and improving school systems. I know he's a part of the consortium with Dr. Houston, and I think he lives in the Michigan area. Shout out to him for watching as an educator, as a leader, and what he does out in the community. I'll tell this story. McDonald's, for the people that know me, I love the McRib. I set my watch and I look out. When they say the McRib should be hitting within a month, I am on constant watch of the McRib, regardless of what y'all think about the McRib. So,
it's fake meat.
Small details. So they released the McRib in this area around Christmas time. And when I really like something, I will go and get it every day for a week. Like, that ain't no thing. But they messed up my McRib twice in a row.
What they do to it?
I don't eat onions on it. Like, okay. I don't like raw onions, and they put them on it twice.
That's normal at McDonald's. What you talking about here?
Yeah, but I asked them not to. But guess what I did? I went right back to McDonald's that third day because, you know what I'm saying? So I can't help these grudges against black businesses or minority businesses that I don't hold myself accountable for these major corporations that have training, leadership. So I have to check myself. Minister Daniels, do you think we're not willing to sacrifice in this current environment? And Marlon brought up leaders. I'm not even talking about leaders. I'm talking about everyday people. Like, if there was an economic boycott on Amazon or name of Walmart, could we really sacrifice? And even though the Walmart might be a mile from your house, you say, I'm going to drive 10 miles to go to this store. Are we willing to sacrifice little small things like that?
No, we're not going to make that sacrifice. We're going to go there. Like Marlon said, we'll say, oh, I'm not going to go to Walmart. And we'll call everybody we know and tell them we ain't going to Walmart because they talking about this, but on our phone, we need to order them groceries to have delivered. We're not going to make the sacrifice. That's just like, I don't want nobody to get fired. That's just like saying a worker, well, no, they boycott, so I ain't going to work. You know you're going to work. We're not going to make the sacrifice. We'll try to find something different, or we'll talk about it. Why y'all want to do it on this day? I can't do it this day. Why are we going to do it here? I ain't got no gas to drive across town and go there, so I got to go there. My baby need me. We're going to come up with every excuse in the world for the reason we got to go. Instead of just making that sacrifice. We're not going to make the sacrifice. We're not going to lay down our line. But we'll talk about it, though. We'll blame Trump. We'll blame the politicians. We'll blame everybody in the world. But we're not going to be the one to make the sacrifice to make some change.
Man, you know how deep it would be and how committed you have to be to a cause. And we think about the civil rights era, that most everyone involved knew that bodily harm probably was going to come to them, or even death. That you would say, and a lot of these young leaders. Martin Luther King was in his teens and in 20s and 30s doing all this, going to jail. Like, how many of us are even willing to go to jail for something we really believe in? Like,
right.
I ain't messing up my record. They're going to mess up my good job. T, are we willing to sacrifice in this day and age? Because I think without sacrifice, nothing happens.
I think, as with any question, any topic, it's always a lot of nuance to it. And I think, you started off with the ultimate, putting your life on the line. There's a lot in between that top of the pyramid. There's a lot of things we can sacrifice before we get to that one. And I think that's okay. Like, it's some people that's not willing to sacrifice their life, but willing to sacrifice a lot of things. And that's fine. I think I'm going to say sometimes we get caught up in I've been on a crusade, I would say, to change, to expand my circle of people I hang around, whether that's be people of different races, different genders, or different. And I've been doing pretty good with that the last 2 years, and it has really expanded my circle. I think sometimes, just like in social media, in real life, we kind of get in a what they call that, where it's an echo chamber. We in an echo chamber on social media. We get an echo chamber of our real life. If us four are best friends and we talk about something all the time, we'll think, well, this is where black men are thinking right now. But then you got black men in Seattle, Washington. You got black men in San Diego, California, in Toronto, Canada. And so I do think I said all that to say, I think that there is a lane of people that's sacrificing a lot. I'm looking on social media. I'm seeing people going to bat. I'm seeing people talk about organizing. I don't know if necessary North and South Carolina will be the place where we will be starting the Underground Railroad right now. Maybe we're missing out, but I think it's some people in DC, in New York, and in Chicago, and California. It is some people mobilizing, organizing. I think that is that's always a struggle in our community. I think even more than ever now is like mobilizing and collaborating. That would be like, and maybe that's part of the sacrifice. But those are the two things I see as a bigger issue, is mobilizing and organizing. But I do think there's people sacrificing. I will add, I think it's people sacrificing. I think it's people willing to sacrifice. I think these four guys on this panel is willing to sacrifice some things. So I just think it takes a little bit more than what you're personally willing to sacrifice. We have to, because nobody can do it alone. We have to mobilize and organize. And I think that's a bigger issue. But my answer is I do think we're willing to sacrifice.
And Lamont, question for you. I mean, we talk about the differences between back then and now, right? So you talk about, say, if we just decided as a people to not catch a train or go or ride the buses, right? With people who truly depend on that. I mean, do you feel as though this generation that we're in now would be willing to walk to work or walk wherever or try to carpool or whatever they need to do and sacrifice that when they're so used to being able to depend on public transportation? I mean, do you feel like we still have that same dedication in this generation?
No, but it's probably come from a level of comfort. And we have to understand how we got to where we are. You know, there is leaders that died who paid the ultimate sacrifice for our voting rights, for our freedoms of Jim Crow being dropped. And I think the next generation said, no, we can work in these factories. We can work in these different settings. So now we don't need to put up this big fuss. And then they have kids and like, no, we live in integrated neighborhoods. We don't, you know, things okay. Why are we putting up this big fuss? And I'll give you a deep example. And I said this maybe a couple of shows ago. Myrtle Beach, South Carolina has clearly said many, many times they do not want Black Bike Weekend there.
Facts.
But clearly, Black folks think that's a badge of honor to still go and support and pour money into that economy, even though they know that those people have no thought of wanting you there. They raise the rates between Harley Week and Black Bike Week. Some of the hotels don't open at all. Some of the restaurants. It's the same thing Charlotte just dealt with the CIAA. NCAA tournament 1 week, CIAA the next, 2 different rates, charging you up charges. We have to make a stand to say, okay, if you don't want our money, we're not going to force ourselves there. The same way with clothing designers, the same way with shoes. Like, we have to be strategic on how we spend our money. And I think we're not doing that or caring about the ripple effect by not making sound decisions as a people. And I think that's where we're losing the battle in the fight, that there's not a soundness to the decision making to buy products of people who don't like you because of your skin color. Like that is sad that we would spend money and continually prop up companies who don't like us, don't want our money. Want our money, but don't want us into their stuff. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, yes, and what I think one of the big problems also right now is misinformation. You got to think about that because, you know, it's there's some things that we should be agreeing on, like at 100% rate of like, and you seeing more and more people. I have more and more Black male friends of mine that went Republican this time and voted for Donald Trump, and it's like, for instance, let's not even use Trump. Let's just use me saying when they started peeling back the diversity, equity, inclusion, and affirmative action, and me calling my friends in the question about they were voting for Trump or whatever, and saying, hey, what do you think about this? And they couldn't even tell me that was bad. So it was like, this was something that it was like a light bulb moment for me to be like, we're in such a period, I think, of disenfranchisement. Is that a word? I think it is. Disenfranchisement. I think that word I'm trying to say. And misinformation that is so hard, man. It really is like, if I got to convince some people around me that there's some other people trying to get rid of DEI and affirmative action. If I got to fight to convince them that that's bad, where are we really going? Like that, I think there's so much. Go ahead.
I don't want to turn this into a political show, but I don't want to stop the conversation because this is real. There's a couple polls and surveys out, and I'll give you one, how people's minds are so twisted. When people were polled on if they thought Obamacare was good, from different races, different groups, 80% says no, Obamacare is terrible. The same people are polled to say, is the Affordable Care Act a great program and we need to expand it? 90% says yes. So when you talk about
they don't want Obama's name on it.
When you talk about DEI, that's another word for race. When you talk about affirmative action, that's another word for black. So we can't be naive in these conversations also to not know that race and racism plays a huge part in the way people think. DEI just took on a life of itself. That automatically means black, like, or minorities are getting something they don't deserve.
Yeah.
And it's the furthest thing from the
It
truth.
really is.
Look at what DEI is. We went through the same thing with education when they were talking about critical race theory. That all of a sudden became something with black people. That's not what this is. But when you tie race to it, it's a thing that this country hasn't grappled with. And to be honest, black folks hasn't grappled with the generational curses of slavery and Jim Crow and how that's affected us generationally. Minister Daniels, does that make sense, or am I too far off on this?
No, it makes sense. It's all about wording. How you word something, if it refers to black or race, oh no, that's bad. But if you say that same thing in a different language or a different word, oh, okay, that's the good. That's just like us, which I don't agree with. We talk about the N-word. Now it's cool if me and Marlon had a conversation and I say it. Marlon laugh, I'll keep going. Somebody else say, oh, we got a problem here. But the word still mean the same thing to me no matter who say it. But we'll take it and try to make it seem good if we having the conversation now when we just saying it. We're saying to each other it's good. Now if somebody else say it, nah, man, that's a problem. We ready to fight. But did the meaning change because somebody different said it? It still mean the same thing. So that's just like when Mark saying it. We're saying the same thing. We're using two different words but the same meaning.
No,
We're gonna flip it.
And Marlon, in this current events, how people have twisted themselves in knots to not say anything critical, I think is sad, and we don't have a great moral base. And I want to ask this question, and I want to do a show on this. Where is the church? Right? If the church stands for moral ground, and not a political conversation, but a moral stance, where is the church and the church body and the kingdom builders in these types of times, right? Like in the 60s, the church is mobilized. A lot of the boycotts and all that was through the church. Where is the church in these current times or current events we're having?
Lamont, you talking about, churches now to where you got to vet your sermon before you even say it before the congregation, right? So I think the issue with, and I'm not saying all churches, but I would say a majority of churches are more worried about, and I think we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, Lamont, more worried about not stepping on toes versus speaking the truth, afraid of losing congregation, right? Afraid of those numbers going down, even though statistically they went down anyway, right? But I think that, we talk about freedom of speech. You talk about social media, you can get on here tomorrow and, start hollering morals and saying, what you talk about behind the curtain, right? You say a lot of that stuff, maybe publicly, you might not have a job. You might get canceled. You just never know. And I think that fear is there, Lamont, for pastors, for leaders, for people in the congregation, for people to say, and we talked about this too, people saying they want the truth until you speak it, right? So I think that, the church standing on that moral obligation, and standing up in a pulpit or even telling, the person next to you, hey, what you're doing is not right. This is not of the Bible. How many of us are going to do that without worrying about repercussions from either, that relationship that you have with them or that congregation that follows you. And maybe you're saying stuff that's safe every week. So for me, man, I just think it's really the concern with, we're too afraid now to step on each other's toes. And to me, the best friends that I've had are the ones that tell me, what I need to hear, not what I want to hear. And it doesn't feel good at the time, right? A lot of times I'm not going to like it. A lot of times it's a difficult conversation, but for you to come to me and tell me what I need to hear versus what I wanted to hear, it builds me up as a person. Now, may I feel a certain way about you for a week or two? Hey, I may be in my feelings or something like that. We get like that, right? But I don't think enough of those conversations are had, Lamont. If we're more worried about, I don't want to hurt little Johnny's feelings versus telling Johnny, hey, this is real raw. You shouldn't be doing this. And as a church, we should be standing up against a lot of these things now. And I know, Lamont, it's hard to take it political too, but you think about, even with Trump, I mean, you talk about the church, but who's standing up against him? Who's talking out against him? They'll I guarantee you, behind closed doors, they probably speaking their opinions and what they feel and how they maybe disagree with this stuff. But when you come on the forefront, and it's another thing to step in front of the camera and say these same things that you say with your family, and now you got and I think it's leading with fear. To me, it's like, if I do stand up, and of course anybody's been on this panel, when you stand for yourself and not go with the crowd, right? That's hell. Anybody that's been through that, right? If you don't go with the flow, what everybody else is doing, and you looked as the outcast, that's hard to stand on. But I think people don't want to be that one that sore, that green thumb, right? That's just sticking out, and everybody else is flowing that other way. But we need more people like that, because that's the only way we're going to see some of the changes we want to see.
Well, white Southern evangelicals, they're not scared to step on toes. They raising their hands. We're Trump. We're Trump.
Well, we know whose internet is
white Southern evangelicals. They not.
Well, maybe I need to visit that church. I hadn't seen it yet. So,
Mr. Daniel, and Nikita brings up a good point that everything involves politics. Even when we try to stay away from it, it affects us. 1,000 VA workers lost their job last week, and I'm in a lot of veteran groups, a lot. And
they even cut the veteran stuff, right? Didn't they cut the?
Yeah. So for a lot of people who don't know, a lot of veterans vote Republican. They always have, because the Republican Party promises all these different things through the VA system. But I've watched in these veteran groups how people are saying that, oh yeah, the VA system was bloated anyway, and these people, it's just waste. I'm like, man, you're the one getting health care, just like I am through the VA. You wasn't saying that a month ago, 3 months ago. What are you doing? Like, you're going to hurt your own cause in order for R or D to be, it just doesn't logically make sense. And I will say something Everett has said to me since COVID that I didn't agree, but I now agree, that we're under spiritual attack, spiritual warfare. So Minister Daniel, I'll ask you the question: where's the church in all this?
You would hope the church would step up. But the problem is, if you take all the Baptist churches in Rock Hill and all the AME Zion churches, you have a lot of people. A lot of people that, if they got together, could make some serious change in just Rock Hill. But the problem is, everybody want to know who will be in charge. Who will run? Now, I ain't doing it. If I'm not in charge, my church ain't participating. If Citizen ain't in charge, my church ain't participating. So the problem, we can't get together as Blacks, because we always want to know who will be in charge, who run the show, who making all the decisions. Instead of we come together with one common goal, one common purpose, we wouldn't have any problem in Rock Hill. We wouldn't have a voice to stand on, but we got to stick together. Churches in the 60s, they got together. It didn't matter who was in control, because we had one common goal. With Martin Luther King, it ain't nobody come out of the crowd and say, don't listen to him, listen to me. They all ran together. They all had one common goal. It's like with Rosa Parks and the bus. We say, we ain't gonna ride the bus. They didn't ride the bus. You come in today and say, we ain't ride the bus, man. How I'm gonna get to work? I'm gonna pick you up. You may have a few people come along and say, well, okay, I pick these people up. And some gonna say, well, I ain't picking nobody up. Hope they got enough people. Our problem is with churches and us in general. We don't want to come together because we don't want to do the work, and two, we want to try to figure out who gonna be in control and who run the show, who got the final vote,
and who got the longest title on their name, Minister Fred.
Yes.
T, where is the church? Can the church persuade you right now to say, hey, I'm all in, whatever you need from my businesses, whatever you need from me as a person? Have you saw enough out of that yet?
This is a fully loaded question, because I think
every question ain't fully loaded. Stop that. Just give a straight answer.
This one is, because I think most of us feel probably that our church is not stepping up in a lot of topics, politics being one, but we feel like our church is probably not. Our churches a lot of times and our communities are not stepping up to even more substantial issues on an everyday basis for us, not only just politics. So, yeah, I think obviously there's not enough being done there. I think earlier, I don't know, my speaker was cutting out, but I was saying the white evangelical church firmly made their position known, right? I think they voted for Trump like at a higher percentage than black people vote Democrat. Like I think the white Southern evangelicals like 95% or better for Trump. So there's some churches that are mobilizing and organizing and taking a stand and not afraid to stand on one side of the issue or who they're going to lose or whatever. They stood up and made their position known. And I think back years ago when it was in the middle of the civil rights movement, our churches were taking a stand and letting it know which side that they were on. I thought that we were in a time now where, if you ask a black person a question about politics on TV, the first thing they're going to say is we're not a monolith, right? That's like our claim to fame. That's like the perfect phrase now. We're not a monolith. I personally think we're almost in a time where we almost need to be close to being a monolith. Like they come in with the KKK hoods. Like we need to all be a monolith, right? We got to run. Nah, I'm not going with y'all. I feel like we're in a time where that we're not a monolith almost ain't it ain't what's up no more. Like it's making me look at my friends and people around me in a real shady way. And so to your point about the church, I think there was a side for the church to step up and stand on. And yeah, I was a little disappointed that I didn't see that.
No, I think we're in a different norm right now. And I remember we did a show, and I forgot the exact date that Kamala Harris announced. And we did a show within a couple of hours of that. I think she had Biden stepped down and he selected her within an hour. It might have been like at 1 o'clock. So we did a show that night. It was going to be on something different, and we ended up on that. And I remember saying clearly, hey, there's a lot of black men who are not going to vote for a woman. And I was shot down. I still remember who was on the panel. And they were like, nah, we're going to come together. We're going to unite. Like, nah, I go to the barbershop. I hear black men talking. Like, we need to have a different type of conversation. And I remember even as the election cycle really, really picked up at that point, a lot of people told me, no, people are going to unify. I'm like, nah, I still go to the barbershop. I still have black male friends. They're not voting for a woman. And one of the key reasons where we are as a people, there's a lot of black churches that will not have a black female as their pastor. Mm-hmm. We got to have that open door, honest conversation too. And if you don't have that conversation, you're not going to have the president of the United States as a woman and vote as a black person. Marlon, does that make sense, or am I a little bit off on that?
No, bro. Like I said, I had some conversations around that too at the barbershop, and you'd be surprised at the thinking of that. There's not that support there, for another woman of color, and would look a lot like somebody who raised you, more than likely, right? And you wouldn't have been here without that particular individual. Yeah, it takes a father to make a child, but if you've ever watched a woman deliver a baby, it's a whole different level of respect that you have there for them. If you're in that process, seeing that. So, yeah, Lamont, I just, it's like, to me, even with the switching of the guard per se, when he had, pretty much anointed her with, to take the flame over. And I just felt like it was too little too late, man. I thought that it probably should have been way earlier than that to build that up. And of course, at the time you had a sense that, there was momentum building, right? All the money was coming in and, people were excited, but to me, it just still wasn't enough. And as you can see now, the memes, you see with her, saying, I told you so. And, their thing was like, we're not going back. Right. And I think a lot of people now see what she meant by that. We're not going back, because really, honestly, y'all, we're going back. Right. I mean, when you look at daily, what's happening, it's like we're being rewound back to what 50s and 60s, you know, things like that. Is almost trying to tear those things down. And what's scary for me as a black man is that, you know, you had some of these things in place that was supposed to set to help us, but you know, even with it in play, you still had to outperform your peers as being a black male 3 times to probably even keep the current position you in, even prior to a Trump, right? So now that you're peeling these things back, and I don't think people are, I won't say woke, Lamont. Well, I will say woke. I don't think people are really understanding how serious this is, right? I think, you know, people just go through day-to-day basis and be like, well, it won't affect me, but it will. And you see a lot of people as well now that's, you know, making, you know, TikTok trends, as far as a lot of people regret putting, you know, that man in the office at this point, because a lot of the people that put him in now don't have jobs, right? So it's just, I continue to pray for our country, Lamont. And like, you know, you put in the chat every day, these some strange times.
And I tried for probably the first month after the election. I didn't watch any news coverage. It was no need, right? But slowly I've been wound back into the news, and you just find all these strange articles. I'm like, well, are you surprised? Like we're at a time we're not surprised, and you shouldn't be. And I even said, for people watching and listening who've been following this the whole night, I even made a point to say, hey, we're not going to talk about politics. Politics is very little. And T, I think, said, well, how do you not? Like, it's all around us. And I saw someone else comment that is our current state. Like, that is our current events talking, because it affects so many people. Medicaid is going to be rolled back. I think that's almost a certainty. And I'm not going to say I don't want to hear the crime from all this, but I really don't want to hear the crime. This is what you wanted. You thought that was this much bloat and excess in the U.S. You're going to get exactly what you're looking for. You looking for $7 tomatoes by the summer? You probably headed that direction. T, in this current event status, and it brings this question. How do you not talk about politics in this cycle we're in? Like, it's your job because tariffs have happened. It's in your life settings, because all these different things that are happening so fast, they affect you one way or the other. So T, can you avoid the politics part?
I don't think you can, and I don't think we should, actually. I think all of my my white friends I actually engaged them on did they vote for Trump and why they voted for Trump. Like let me open my mind to hear, because once again, in my echo chamber, all I see I got a mentality of a guy in a MAGA hat with a KKK hood, and he don't want black people on his lawn, right? But obviously that's not 100% correct. And by asking them some of the questions and getting them some of the answers, even though I did, and getting some of those answers, even though I didn't necessarily still agree, I mean, I wouldn't vote for Trump, but it did show me that these people had different reasonings than for what me and my echo chamber was putting on them. And that was a positive for me. That was a positive for me. I'm not gonna say it was a great day. They still voted for Trump, but hearing them say, and give me intelligent answers to some of the reasons that they like Donald Trump's policy. So that's an example of, even when we don't agree, I think we have to talk about it, because that opened my eyes to something. I was in a real dark place after this election. I think, like you said, you took a month off. I think a lot of us did. It was like a wound for me. And like I was saying earlier, how are we going to get ahead when, like you said, the night that Kamala, when they put Kamala up, we got to argue with our people about, is she black? Like, that's what I was trying to say earlier, that like if you just said it, like 100 of us, we got to go this way, and then 20 of us are saying, we're arguing about if she's black. I had to argue with some of my black friends were saying, I was like, this young lady went to Howard University before she knew she was going to be, and pledged Divine Nine before she knew she was going to be famous. I said, if you go to a HBCU right now, it's either all black students or the 2 students that's not black think they're black. So I think that's I'm using that as an antidote of, and I'm putting that question out to us guys, like, if I got to argue with a black person about them rolling back the Civil Rights Act and DEI, is or is not that bad for us? Is Kamala Harris black? Bro, we had the low level kindergarten basic spot. How can we get to this other level we're talking about? Mobilizing the attack and strategizing about where we can attack places strategically for financial. How can we get there? And I got to argue with some of my friends about, hey, he's peeling back the Civil Rights Act. Are you still with him? Well, I still think crab legs in the restaurant gonna be. He's rolling back the Civil Rights Act. So that's my frustrations are I'm at my wit's end here.
Minister Daniel, you run a successful business and you come in contact with a lot of different people. But T brings a good point, man. Like, people have twisted themselves in a knot to explain their patterns of life. How do you not talk about politics, or is it just inevitable? You got to say where you are and let them say where they are in this time.
Like somebody said earlier, it's everywhere. It's nothing you can do doesn't have some woven politics in it. With my business, I'm either go deal with the wealthy people that's not worried about whatever Trump doing, or the people that's trying to figure out, oh, am I going to have a job tomorrow? And politics plays a role in it. I just got to get my mind, whatever God go do. So I can't get caught up in who got what and just let it go. Just like T said, we spent too much time trying to figure out was she black or not. And then once we realized she was black, then we got mad because she had a white husband. Like, what does that have to do with what she's planning on doing? So like Mike said, black men had already had in their mind, now we ain't gonna vote because she's a black woman. But then what they try to do is say, well, we go get a fraternity to give her a whole bunch of money, so now we think that the black man behind her. But that's just a small group. If we all here in the barbershop now, we ain't gonna vote for because she's a woman. We shooting ourselves in the foot already. And then once Trump wins, then we get mad about all the stuff he's doing. Oh, all these people doing a job. Oh, it's going crazy. How all this stuff. And now we mad because of what he's doing. But you had the opportunity to not put him in that seat so he can do whatever he's doing. But then you complain about what he is doing. I think sometimes we don't think before we speak or think before we act. We see something we don't like and we try to eliminate it, not worrying about what the consequences is going to be.
And I think too, Lamont, it goes back to what you said, now that, being on what Minister Daniel was talking about, if we can't accept a black female leading a church, how can we accept a black female leading a country? And you talking about years and years and years of this, right? I mean, you go to a church now, you even see, I think me and my wife had started attending a church. This was a while back, and it was kind of a combination of, the woman, his wife would preach, and then some Sundays he would preach, and and just being transparent, I would question, like, okay, who running this church? Is it him or her, right? And we have to get out of that, because I mean, you got to think about what you was exposed to coming up, right? Male dominated churches, right? As far as leadership, as far as the pastors go. Now you look through churches now and you talk about committees everywhere. Women's pretty much taking over most of that now, right? You look in your churches, and most churches, usher board, choir, and I'm just speaking from my experience. I don't want to speak for the panel, but what I'm saying is more of a, women holding the church together, and a lot of those things now. But, to your point, Minister Daniel, if we're not comfortable with, a black woman leading a church, you get what I'm saying? And I think that's where the conversation was coming in the barbershop too. You're definitely not going to be comfortable with, a black woman leading the country. And I think, that worked to Trump's advantage, unfortunately. He already had, a lot of people that was going to vote for him anyway, but now you put a black woman in a position now to actually lead a country, and you think that you're going to just automatically get the support because she looks like you, and then now you question whether she is, black or not. It's just crazy. And what I've had to learn, even with that, T, sometimes you have to learn and pick and choose your battles, right? Because you don't want to argue with a fool; you'll be exhausted. And I've learned not to try to convince others to believe or feel how I feel, because that's exhausting. It's not going to happen. It's almost just like when you were younger, and say if your parents didn't want you to be in a particular relationship with either guy friends or a particular girl they didn't feel for, right? What would you do? You're going to try to work your hardest to try to still stay with that person to prove them wrong versus listen to what your parents already saw, right? So it's the same analogy, man. You're trying to argue with someone about their beliefs. They're going to stand their ground. What I'm saying, I'm not going to do that, but I guarantee you at this point, there's a lot of buyer's remorse that's in this country right now. And I think that a lot of people are ashamed to speak up to say, hey, I might have made the wrong choice.
Man, I think I'm saying this as loud as possible, and I know it came up in the political realm. Like states like South Carolina, Alabama, Mississippi are not self-sufficient states. Most of their funding comes from the federal government. And to be provocative and say it comes from states like California, Texas, New York, Florida, the bigger states carry most of the smaller, which happen to be Republican states, in finances. So when you cut programs and stop federal spending, whether it's a SNAP program, whether it's welfare, you're going to affect a lot of people, and a lot of jobs are tied to it. So I think we're asleep at the wheel. Too many people would sleep at the wheel, and now they're twisting themselves in a knot to make some of this stuff make sense. It doesn't make sense. And for anyone that works on a job, goes to church, change management is the biggest thing you can face. No matter how great the idea is, how simplistic, if you don't have the right change management into that, it's going to fail.
Right.
The problem we have right now, there's 100 things a day happening.
Right.
And it ain't well thought out. It's just stuff somebody woke up and said, hey, let's cut these people.
Executive order.
And then we got like the nuclear weapons people who were fired and had to be brought back a couple of days later. Like, no, these people control the nuclear arsenal. You can't just go out and fire these people. Like, it doesn't, that's what I'm saying. Like, we're not thinking logically. And I think that's the sad part. I do want to bring up one point, talking about the failures of the political system. I don't know how many people are following this, but Stephen A. Smith, the ESPN reporter, correspondent, anchor, is polling like 1 or 2 for the 2028 Democratic ticket seat. Like if you look at polls, people are saying that Stephen A. Smith should run in the Democratic ticket. This is current events. Look this up. Can we say that's a sad state of affairs, or maybe he'll do a better job than the next person? T, what are your thoughts?
Wow, Stephen A. Smith as our and I like Stephen A. Smith.
I mean, we got Trump, right? So I mean, how's that far fetched? You got a reality star that's running the country now, right? So how is that far fetched to me?
Because I don't want my plumber to be my neurosurgeon either. You know what I'm saying? Like,
but what do you have now?
Yeah, but that's a foolish move. Go ahead, T. I'm sorry.
Trump is a different color than Stephen A. Smith, Marlon.
I feel you, because I know what no felon be able to run the country if they was a different color. So I totally get what you're saying, T. You got people that can't even work in a warehouse with a record.
A black guy gonna have to fit all these protocols like Obama. You're not gonna get a Kanye West on our side that's totally outside the box. Not saying we want Kanye West, but I'm just saying you're not gonna get a Stephen A. Smith. They're not gonna let that happen on this side. That can only happen on their side, where a guy who had no experience, never done this, and for years they would have said, you can't go for the job without these things. But that wouldn't happen on our side. To answer your question, Stephen A. Smith, I could never see Stephen A. Smith in a political. I don't think of him as somebody that I would want to put on the forefront fighting for our rights. I think he's great. I think he's very provocative in what he does in sports. I think a lot of times he has some really smart things to say. But as far as running for us, I think now we need, in this point in time, I think we're at a time where we need somebody. I don't want to use the word militant, more even more militant. That ain't even the word I want to use. But I think it's really important that somebody stands up and tells the complete truth right now. Like, I think when you look at Jasmine Crockett, how big her profile is becoming, I think it's because she's standing up and telling the truth in a way that we used to play it so safe before. Like, you wouldn't say, like, one of her things, she went off and she was like, these little white boys and da-da-da. And I think you're gonna have to match Trump with that energy. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think the days of getting up there and trying to be politically correct, and I even think I thought this to myself a lot about. I wonder if Barack Obama looks at this pregnancy and was like, "Dang, I could have did some of the stuff I wanted to do."
No, he couldn't.
Like, oh, we didn't have to just go by the rules.
You talking about somebody that was criticized for wearing a different color suit?
All I'm saying is he'll never know, because he tried to go through all the proper channels anyway.
He had to.
This guy, and I think when Barack won, the Democrats had control of the House and the Senate as well, right? When he won,
but
I'm just saying this guy is pushing the limits where I think go ahead.
I just want to remind you of something. That that control of the House and Senate, there are Democratic senators and Congress people who lost their jobs and knew they were going to lose their jobs because they supported the Affordable Care Act. That was the beginning of the end for that total. And go back and look at what I'm saying. Anyone who questions that, the way the Affordable Care Act got passed, people sacrificed their jobs, their political careers to support it. Without that, it wouldn't have never happened. That's both Democrats and Republicans.
But we don't have people that's willing to do that
Trump
now.
is doing almost everything by executive order. Trump is doing almost everything by executive order.
And I would ask you,
as a matter of fact, all the things that are important to him, he's pushing through by executive order.
Yeah, but is that legal? And we're the opposing, the people that are independent and Democrats that are saying, hey, we don't run our country like this. We got a three-legged government. I haven't saw them people stand up and fight.
Because they're not willing to sacrifice their jobs, Lamont.
Yes.
That's what it's all about. Do I want to continue to feed my family, or do I want to stand up against this monster? I'm sorry, what you said, T?
They probably wouldn't let Obama do it. We know as a black man, they probably wouldn't have let Obama do it. I'm not trying to make the argument they would have let him. I'm saying he's probably saying, I could have tried this.
No,
probably everybody that's been president before is probably like, oh, we had to follow rules. This guy's coming. Listen, this guy's doing for his people what some black people criticize Obama for doing or not doing. Donald Trump, and I'm a huge Obama fan. I'm not saying I'm.
T, I hope you get that chest on the internet.
Donald Trump is doing for what he told. Okay, I'm sorry. Y'all can't hear me, huh?
Let me say this to your point. The first people who would have turned on President Obama would have been black folks. That would have been the first group who turned on him. Let him start doing stuff out of a social norm. Black folks would have turned first, and the rest would have been easy. Black folks are already turning. Like, he ain't black enough. Like, we gotta. Like, I know sometimes we revise history, but there are black people who also say President Obama is not black. So we really have to be careful how we revise history. I brought the stat up, 23% favorability rate to Martin Luther King when he died. We now are so enamored and love and all these different groups quote him, but we've revised history a little bit to make that a fact. Fred, I want to leave you out of this question, Mr. Daniel. Stephen A. Smith as the Democratic leader in our current events, is that palatable or what are we doing here?
Yeah. I'm like Everett said, and what Everett said, I think they just want somebody that they feel has a backbone, or they feel like somebody to stand up or go do whatever crazy, ridiculous thing that they want done or need done. The problem is, one, he has a lot of people that just don't like him. black and white. He got a lot of celebrities and sports people that just don't like him. So if you get the wrong celebrity that just don't like it, you're in trouble. And two, when Kamala first said she gonna run, he was a fan. Yes, we should vote for her. Let's get him. Now, as soon as she lost, he turned his back on her. Oh, she ain't that. So the thing about it, they want him to run, not because they want a puppet to make it in control. Now we can control him. He gonna do whatever we want done. So is he the right choice for us? Nah, I don't think so.
And Marlon, I talk about this with a close friend of mine who just had surgery a lot. One of the easiest jobs you can have on TV as a black person and make a lot of money is to talk junk about black people. Like, if that's your bag, to get on TV and down other black people and follow these narratives, the easiest job you can have, and make a lot of money. We can think of the Candace Owens in the world. We can think of, I can give you a long list, even on the political side. One of our very own home state, Tim Scott, who just think we need to pull ourselves up by the bootstrap. Stephen A. Smith as a politician, is that a good idea? Or
I'm not gonna say it's a good idea, but it's like, we're in a day and time where if you got access to millions of followers, you have a platform, right? You have influence. So we're in a time and age, Lamont, to where if anybody builds a pretty decent audience, whatever they say is true, right? You don't have people that fact check anything. It's like if you got millions of followers and if you say this is really what it is, and we believe you. And we're like zombies now, right? We don't look up information. We won't read anything. We won't do our own research. But I don't think it would be a good choice. But it's like you said, I think he will be put in, if he did do that, I think he would be more controlled than anything, because you got to think of somebody that's, on ESPN, right? So he has to be careful sometimes with some of the things he says, right? Because he could put his position in jeopardy, because Stephen make pretty good over there, right? So it's almost like you talked about, would a Stephen A. Smith be willing to sacrifice a ESPN salary for us? I question y'all that.
The question would be, is it really sacrificing it for us or for you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah. We're definitely in troubled times, or different times. I'm not even going to say trouble. I don't want to use the word afraid. But I understand if you're right now a worker that doesn't know if you're going to have a job next week, you're probably afraid. If you are attached to some of these programs that have federal funding, and then you don't know if these programs are going to be around 6 hours from now, you're probably a little afraid. And I wanted to stay away from politics. And I think my expectations were unrealistic, to be truthful and honest, because politics have permeated every conversation you have. Like, you can't have a basic conversation without politics coming up. Or have you saw this? Have you saw that? Did you see the news Friday? And I think that's the times when I just remember a time when, the president didn't make a lot of noise. And when things happen, it might be once every few weeks, or some economic data came out. But right now we're in an everyday cycle, and it's hard to escape. And I feel sorry for people who are caught up in this political tailwash of they're probably going to lose their jobs. I don't know if y'all saw this. The goal is for 2 million federal workers to lose their job. Yeah. That is the goal, the stated goal. That is a lot of people out of work. So I say continue to pray for our country, continue to pray for each other, and honestly, continue to pray for Donald Trump. No matter what side of the aisle you fall on, we have to pray for our president and decision-making and a change of heart, because we're definitely in different times, and there's a lot of lives that are at stake from this. And I say that with all honesty, even the people around him, that you hope people change their minds about some of the stuff they're doing, because it won't turn out well, short or long term.
And Lamont, I had sent, I don't know if you saw that video I sent to the feed, white Caucasian female that, said she did vote for Trump and she worked for the federal government, right? And said she had lost her job by text, that she was on the phone talking to her friend and just received a text message that she would be let go the next day. I didn't even know they let people go through text messages, but obviously, can you imagine the shock of that? You're just talking to your best friend on the phone and you get a text saying that your job will be eliminated the next day. No personal phone call, no, what I'm saying? No, this is what we may provide going forward over the next, whatever. And she was stating that, this isn't making America great again, right? And she was expressing her disgust as far as voting because she didn't think she would be affected, right? And I think a lot of people were thinking that, oh, it's not going to touch me, but you're wrong. It's going to touch you.
No, I also something sad as we do our wrap up. One of the VA employees that lost lost their job. Similar thing. There was rumors that jobs were going to be cut. They went to try to log into the system the next morning, and there was a note on there. You no longer work here. Turn in your things by this time, and we will make arrangements to have your personal effects shipped to you. Can you imagine you have spent 20 years and that's how they let you go? We're in different times. As we get ready to wrap up, I want to say thank you to everyone who's watching, taking part in the conversation. These are serious times we're in. And I hope this shakes us to the core that says voting matters. Like your one vote matters to the collective. And I hope and pray that's what this does. That sitting on the sideline is not an option, no matter who you vote for. It's not an option. It's something like 36% of people did not vote in this election cycle. So in a country that's 380 million people, that's a lot of bodies that didn't think it was important enough to vote in this cycle. Minister Daniels, any final words, sir?
It's kind of crazy that Trump talked about Obama's unemployment rate, but now all these people getting fired. What's about to happen to the unemployment rate now? It's crazy. And he talked about, I'm gonna improve the economy. How you gonna improve the economy if you laying all these people off? Where they go? They don't have no money to buy nothing. They don't have no money to improve the economy. So now what's gonna happen? So all this stuff happening, and we go scratch our head trying to figure out what's next. But all I'm doing is to continue to do what I'm doing. I'm not worrying about him. God's gonna make a way, and all we can do is pray.
And let me echo something you said earlier about wording. Wording matters. So what the media is portraying is layoffs. These are not layoffs. These are firings. We just figuring out a better way to say these people have permanently lost their jobs and they're not getting them back. And I know that's a more palatable way to say it, but these people are fired. There's no two ways about it. T, I hope your Chester internet holds up for a second, sir. Come on, T. Bring us home, baby. What you got for us? Any final words?
I hope so too. I hope so. I hope so too. I've been over here every time just talking, and you be looking at me like, what's going on? But anyways, I think a lot of my frustration in this particular show has been about the fact that how much disinformation and misinformation is being pushed. I know everybody saw the little thing how Elon Musk used Twitter to push the disinformation. Did everybody see that?
Yeah, that's been going on. Yeah.
Did everybody see that? Okay. I think you think about also what I was saying earlier, how we just can't agree on anything. Like a couple weeks ago, Elon Musk gave a Nazi salute. Right? Like we all saw that. Can we all agree that was a Nazi salute?
It appeared to be.
It was all in fun and games. That's the explanation. Look at T.
Chester, check him out. Chester, like, that's enough, brother.
That's enough of that. You talking about that?
Yeah. Hey, his internet is based on minutes, Lamont. So
all these businesses can't keep his internet going.
he ain't got data. It's on minutes, night and weekend.
He's still on that plan.
Yeah.
Marlon, any final words, final thoughts, sir?
I think what you said, Lamont, resonated, man. Pray for this country. Who's listening tonight, man? Just continue to pray for this country. Even if you don't feel like it, pray for this president. Pray for a renewing of the mind. God is in God's hands, man. I had to disconnect from the television, Lamont. The news can be, and if anybody's out there listening, please disconnect sometimes. Don't sit up and get caught up in all this media and stuff like that. Because, I even think about too as well, everybody, oh, what's going on with the planes? But I was like, what the media report on every time a plane landed safe, it's almost just like you get what I'm saying? I mean, that would be an all day thing, right? We focus on those things that are going to encompass fear in us, as individuals. So we keep watching and we keep waiting and we're anxious. So, and what the news does, all they do is play now stuff over and over 24/7. You think about our age, we come up, what you see it at, what was it, 4 and 11 at night or something like that, or 6 o'clock news and then 11 o'clock news, right? But now you got a 24-hour information zone, man, that you can go to and just either, plug in and get depressed or disconnect and, try to stay encouraged in the word. But I would say, Lamont, I'll just continue to come back to, man, and just pray for our country because, as you stated, every time I look at your feed, we are in strange times and, we need God's help because, you got a lot of people now that don't know what they're going to do for their families, man. And I pray for them that they bounce back. And I just pray that, our country heads in the right direction with the help of God.
No, Marlon, for the people who don't know what Marlon's saying when I say we're in strength, like we have a lot of different chat conversations going on. Some with prior guests, some with the cast from Higher Definition. And every time, like, I don't know any words to put, but we're in strange times. Who would have thought Canada would be our enemy and Russia would be our friend? Who would have thought, like, that's strange to me. Like, if I was in a coma for a year, I would think someone is punking me or telling me a bad joke. That's all the stuff that's going on. We're just in strange times, and I'm not going to say fearful times, but we're definitely in strange times. T, you look like your signal and cleared up before.
He just refreshed his anytime minutes with his internet, so hey, he had to re-up.
Go ahead, T, before your minutes run out again.
Can you hear me now?
We
coming through clear now?
Yeah.
Okay. I guess I should have did this a long time ago. I was mentioning a big part of my frustration that's been coming through this show is about how much disinformation and misinformation. And I was talking about how I'm sure all of us have saw some of the little reels or clips on how Elon Musk used Twitter to get this election for Trump.
Oh yeah.
And then back to my thing too of like debating with people about did we see what we see, or can everybody on this panel agree that Elon Musk gave a Nazi salute last month?
Yeah, it appeared that he did.
Yeah. and if it appeared that he did, and then he never said it wasn't a Nazi salute. He said the left is trying to make some strange things. He never said, you know what, that was not a Nazi salute. I don't know why, I did it like that. I apologize. He didn't say anything. He just said the left is trying to make him look bad. Bro, if we got to argue about the people that's in charge giving Nazi salutes, I mean, we almost down to prayer. We almost, when Lamont always has questions for us on the panel, like, what can we do here? Or what can we do? We down to prayer. Like prayer is where we at, man. Of course, we're going to continue to try to mobilize, man. I think Lamont spoke to me the other day. I posted something on my social media where I opened an account at a black bank, and I got a lot of feedback. A couple other people went over there and started, and I didn't, full transparency, like Marlon said earlier, I didn't take 100%.
See, anytime he started talking about something crazy, the internet.
And not for a buzzkill, but I didn't take 100% of my money over there, but it was a start. I felt really good about it. I felt good that I engaged some other people who are now saying that they're open to doing it. and I'm gonna try to push that on people. Of course, where you put your dollars really count. Anybody get a chance, look into some black banks. We got a couple of them here in Charlotte, and go ahead and open an account over there. There were some good people over there. I felt at home when I was over there.
Put your money where your mouth is, right?
I want to thank you for that. You also need to invest in some solid internet. Like, you invest in putting your money in these black banks, you better find you a solid internet service provider, sir. That's probably gonna take you further because you can't even check your account with the way your internet is.
I've been on 50 shows. This is my first time that we've had problems with the internet.
Okay. Hey, T. Hey, but invest in some solid internet, T. That's what you need to invest in.
Listen,
sir.
You started out this show being nice to me, so I know the people was like, "What's going on?" But now we're finishing the show correctly.
You knew it was coming, T.
I do want to thank all the people like T and Minister Daniel, entrepreneurs who are out here making things happen. Marlon, who is inquisitive to say, hey, I need to get with you. I think we're in that time to get information to propel us further, to propel the next generation further. I want to thank everyone for who's been watching, listening, following, commenting tonight. We've had probably all of February shows that end up talking about politics, and it's inescapable. Like, no matter what the topic is, we keep ended up back in politics. So I want to say we want to do a relationship show, but that's probably going to turn into I can't afford the date because people get fired. So we are going to try to pull off a relationship show next week just to take a break from this. Marlon, we'll talk about it. We're going to have to try something different because for a lot of this, politics, especially, depends on where you are in your career. Like, your heart has to go out for the 63, 64-year-old person that lost their job. Like, we know how this world works. It's hard to get a job back at those ages, especially probably the money you were making. So we want to bring laughter. We're going to figure out a topic next week that stays away as much as possible for politics.
Right.
And I hope everyone understands, because, man, this can be a buzzkill. Like, you can't even get through a church sermon now without bumping into someone. And I know it's just not my church that somehow we ended up on these deep politics questions. And you looking at somebody strange because you're like, it sounds like you might have voted. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can pick up buzzwords and, that make you think, like, wait a minute. Who did you vote for? Like,
right. Let's step outside, brother.
Yeah. I can't trust you no more. So I want to thank everyone for watching, listening. I want to thank Higher Definition as a whole. Like I said, we went through a lot over the last 6 months with family, I don't want to say issues, family life things going on, surgeries, sickness, illness, and we've been able to still pull this together and have a show every Sunday night. We haven't missed a beat on the Sunday morning inspiration, and we haven't missed a beat on the Thursday thoughts. Now, the sausage making in the background might get a little messy, the part that everyone doesn't see, but I do want to thank all the cast that make up Higher Definition for what they've done to keep this thing rolling, because I think it's important to have levity and have deep conversations to start our day or start our week. So I want to say thank you for that. I want to say thank you to our guests, T and Minister Daniel, for what they do out in the community, what they do as professions, what they do as leaders. The group I don't want to think is T's internet provider tonight. They have not been solid. They have let him down over and over and over.
Hey, Lamont, he got it. He got it through Popeye.
I figured out what happened. I know what happened.
You need to put some holy oil on your server or your router when you get off tonight.
I know what happened.
And with that, I'll say be blessed. Have a great week, everyone. Continue to pray for each other. T, what you doing now, man? What's going on, man?
He checking his minutes, Lamont, because you still talking. This man about to get kicked out now. He got to check on it. He got 59 seconds left.
Oh my goodness. Y'all see why I have problems when T come on here. He doing stuff like this. Don't blame me for going after him because he be deserving every second of it. But with that, I'll say be blessed. Have a great week, everyone. Continue to pray for Everett Able as he recovers. And, you know, yeah, all of us going to go through something one day. And I know he doesn't want anyone to make a big deal about him and all that. But we're friends. I consider Everett like a brother to me. And continue to pray for him as he recovers. Hope to have him back soon. We just got in a space about a week ago that we can start back talking politics and silly stuff. So I know he's starting to feel better. So with that, I'll say be blessed. Have a great week, everyone. Definitely stay prayed up. Good night, everyone.
Good night.